They say beauty is pain, but it shouldn't be deadly. Unfortunately, that's one lesson that has been learned the hard way. Cosmetics are nothing new in human society. For example, both men and women in ancient Egypt used eyeliner, believing that it would help prevent illness. However, the eyeliner they used was made with lead and thus would have caused a number of health problems for the people who wore them. They were only saved by their short life expectancy. Ancient Egyptians generally didn't live past 30, so the side effects wouldn't have had time to appear. The use of lead in cosmetics was also popular in the West during the 17th, 18th, and 19th centuries. On the one hand, it helped women achieve a pale look and smooth skin, both of which were popular at the time, but it also meant that they were slowly being poisoned. Most famously, Queen Elizabeth I used cosmetics containing mercury, arsenic, and lead, which many historians believe contributed to her death. But it wasn't just makeup that could be deadly for people in the early modern era. Atropa belladonna, or deadly nightshade, is a toxic plant that was used as eye drops. It would dilate the pupils to create a seductive dough-like appearance, but it could also cause visual distortions and kill you after prolonged use. Possibly the most disturbing trend of all, however, was the use of radioactive materials in a variety of beauty and health products. Discovered in 1898 by Marie Curie, radium, a radioactive element, was used in soaps, toothpaste, lipsticks, and other makeup products. With its green glow, it was even advertised as liquid sunshine. Of course, the use of these products could cause radiation poisoning and death, and it even killed Marie Curie after years of exposure. Meanwhile, arsenic was not only used in makeup, but also in household items and clothing. Most infamously, when fabric was dyed with the poison, it turned a brilliant green shade referred to as emerald green. This shade became especially popular for its time and was used in dresses, shoes, gloves, and artificial flower wreaths. In 1861, 19-year-old Matilda Schurer, whose job involved dyeing fake flowers with arsenic, died as a result of her exposure to the poison. Her bile, vomit, and the whites of her eyes were all green. Deaths such as hers became more and more common, and by the late 1800s, arsenic-laced fashion was phased out. To this day, this shade of green has a bad reputation among seamstresses. Perhaps most shocking of all is the sheer horror that hat makers of the time could endure. In Alice's Adventures in Wonderland, the Hatter is a character who comes off as unpredictable and eccentric.
Have you any idea why a raven is like a writing desk?
But the term Mad as a Hatter doesn't originate from the 1865 book. Instead, it was inspired by reality, as hat makers were so often exposed to mercury. Those in this profession were poisoned over their entire lives as they toiled over the products they made. In the 18th and 19th centuries, hats were made with animal fur. Using a process called keratin, manufacturers would use mercury to form this fur into felt. The hat makers themselves would inevitably be exposed to mercury through this process, as well as via the vapors and dust in the air. Hat makers often developed both neurological and psychological symptoms. They would lose their teeth, drool, tremble, twitch, hallucinate, and much more. And perhaps no other city felt these effects more than Danbury, Connecticut. Once known as the hat capital of the world, the hat makers of Danbury referred to the trembling as the Danbury Shakes. In 1860, mercury poisoning of hat makers was noted for the first time in medical literature. However, because it affected only the workers and not the public, the Connecticut State Board of Health did pretty much nothing. With the help of Dr. Alice Hamilton, however, the conditions inside hat factories became well documented, and in 1941, Connecticut banned mercury in hat making. Nonetheless, mercury can still be found on the grounds and nearby rivers of Danbury, where the hat-making factories once stood. Check out one of our newest videos right here. Plus, even more grunge videos about trends throughout history are coming soon. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell so you don't miss a single one.